Apostle Rob Wallace.
It's just to entice people to sign the petition is what it sounds like.
Yep, and they're not forthcoming on the rest of the information. So a lot of that information that's in there, they want to change where, let's say you commit a theft, right? You go steal something. Before I can arrest you, I got to check to see if it's the amount
$750.
is up to $750. If it's less than $750, I can't arrest you. The expectation is I write you a ticket or I give you a verbal warning and you're on your way. So if I have a mom and pop grocery store, and kids will be kids, and I go do a beer run at your house, how much beer can I steal before it amounts to $750?
Right.
If you have a restaurant, right, and I take 50 people eat a $37 steak.
Yeah.
Right? That adds up. But how many people are going to eat and walk away without paying for the check? Now the business owners are affected because we as police officers can't do anything because they're trying to implement this.
Yeah.
And again, they're trying to put these things in state law, federal law that we have to follow, say that they can't. But if we open the door and vote yes for this, that's one step closer to them changing those things.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Apostle Rob Wallace, and I'm sitting here with Danny Diaz. He is the president of the SAPOA, which is the San Antonio Police Officers Association. And I asked him to be on this broadcast because he has some very important information that I know that all the community needs to have. And I'm so excited to have him on the show because he has a lot of very important information that I know San Antonio community must have. And so I'm excited. I want you to tune in. If you're a citizen of San Antonio, in the San Antonio community, listen, and you know people that are part of this community, you need to share this as much as possible because we're going to give you some very, very important information, some things that are coming up in policies that you need to know. Policies that will affect your children, your grandchildren, the mom and pop stores, if in a positive or negative way, depending on how we respond and how we react to some of the things that are going to take place. And so again, here we have Danny Diaz. Welcome to the Soul Source Podcast. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, sir. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, and so first thing I want to ask you, I know you're a police officer and some people inspired to be police officers because it's a special call. And I just want to ask you, what led you to want to be a police officer and then ultimately led you into the position of president?
Well, it's kind of a long story. I'll try and make it short, but my father was a police officer.
Okay.
So I didn't want to pursue that career. Back when I got out of college, I was playing baseball and got injured. So I got out of college and started working at Baptist Hospital. One of my buddies says, "Hey, police department's hiring, let's go take the test." And I said, "Nah." He goes, "Oh, you're just scared." I said, "Mama didn't raise any scaredy cats."
Right.
We wound up taking the test. We both passed, and which led me to a great career. Once I got in, I loved it. I was able to work with the community, got to do a lot of things. And it's a job that's actually fulfilling because you help a lot of people. I know people see police officers in a different light because by the time we get called, it's the last resort. Right. Something bad has happened.
Right.
But we do a lot of things. And the reason why I ran for this presidency and to take this position is I saw a change over the 30 years that I've been on this department.
Right.
And it's not the same from when I first started. And when I first started, we were able to actually sit and talk to people for a couple minutes after a call.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're so shorthanded that officers are going from call to call, and if they try to talk to someone, then upstairs is our management's looking. Hey, are these officers holding a call, or are they going to the next one?
Right.
So we've got to continue to keep moving because we're almost 2 million people, and so it's a lot to take care of.
2 million people versus how many police officers?
On paper, it's 2,503.
Okay.
But in actuality, we've got about 2,370, 60, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So it just varies. There's a lot of people leaving this profession right now. We're losing a lot of people. Something that's unheard of. Normally, people stay throughout a good career, 35 years.
Yeah.
We're having officers that are leaving at 2 and 5 years.
Okay.
Because it's not what it's portrayed out to be, and things have changed. And now over the last couple of years that we've had, situations from George Floyd, and then you had Uvalde. So we go from over policing to under policing, not enough done. Officers are caught in the middle, and it's stressful. And we're going through our things too, where we've had a overabundance of officers committing suicide.
Wow.
Over the last year and a half. So it's tough.
So is it the pressure from the top and the bottom, or I guess you would say from the bosses per se and the community, or where's the pressure?
Well, I'll tell you, it's coming from everywhere, right?
Right.
We're kind of blanketed that all officers are bad, and that's not so.
Right.
Things that happen up north don't happen down here, but the profession itself has been blanketed. So if people start looking at us in a negative light, and then things go wrong at home, or they're not right at home, what out do officers actually have?
Right.
And it's just constant negativity, and so we're trying to change that, trying to help out our members and be able to go seek some counseling and whatnot. But a lot of what officers do on their off time, a lot of officers coach kids.
Yeah.
And they're out at your Catholic youth organizations, your year-round baseball, football, all those camps. That's a stress release for them.
Right.
And it's a double positive. And what I mean by that is they're out helping kids, letting them see, hey, we're just like you.
Right.
And on the other side, they get a stress relief because they're out there helping and working and having fun with the kids and teaching. Right.
Well, now, one of the things I want to ask is because I've had positive and negative experiences with police officers, especially growing up in Detroit. My negative experience wasn't like life-altering experience, getting pulled over for no reason, getting pulled over because I wanted to make a phone call at a gas station when it was at night, and they're wondering what I'm doing, looking for. And of course, that was a long time ago. And then, having 5 or 6 police officers pull up on me for, changing too many lanes. And then I also had friends, and one particular friend who years back was grabbed by a police officer and just manhandled. He was a young kid and thrown on top of the police car. And so a lot of people have concerns like that, and that was concerns. Was that a real policing way of doing things back then, and have things changed since then? What would you say is different now versus then?
Well, a lot of things, and I can't speak to what happened in Detroit, but I know from here and the way things are done and the training that we have, it's not the same, right? Right. I was taught a certain way in that you treat people like people until that line is crossed. And what they meant by that was, if they're trying to take your life, you protect yourself at all times and make sure you go home. Mm-hmm. Now, there's chastising that goes on from all sides, but if you actually sit and think about it, an individual that it's just got bad in them, mm-hmm. and they're doing bad things. They're selling drugs, they're hurting people, they're shooting people. Those type of individuals don't actually respond to an order that's given to them. Right. And it's like having kids, right? We were all raised. I know when I was raised, I only tell you one time, and you do what you're told, or you're going to be in trouble. Right. And so what's the expectation? How many times did we tell people to do something that is not detrimental to the community that we protect and serve? So at some point, officers do have to put their hands on individuals. Yeah, I understand. And place them into custody. And some people just don't want to go to jail. And it's not to hurt anyone. We're not taking this job to hurt anyone. Now, being a history buff back in the day, and I'm 55 years old, and I remember when I was a kid, we wouldn't lock our doors. Mm-hmm. Our screen doors were unlocked, and we had no issues. Right. And nowadays, you just can't. Now there's cameras everywhere for safety and whatnot. So times have changed, even though we kind of reverted back to what the 50s and 60s were for a while across the nation. And what I mean by that is the dialogue of over policing and not doing what needs to be done. Certain instances happen throughout the country that just kind of blanketed everybody.
Right.
You know, a lot of those departments, some of them were small departments that didn't get the training that we do. So things like that will happen in those areas. But here in this city, it's different.
Right.
It's a lot different.
The reason I asked that is because when I was talking about my friend, that did happen here, although it was years ago. And the reason why I'm asking you that question is because I know that people still carry that experience. What would you say to those people that carry that experience, and what changes could you say were made or hadn't been made or need to be made for people to feel better about the police department?
So a lot of the training that this department has done over the last 3 decades that I've been here has enhanced. So our rules and regulations, you know, when I first started, it was a small book about a 1/4 inch thick. Now you're talking about 2-3 inch thick book,
Right.
And there's a lot of training and policies and things that officers have to follow that have minimized those sorts of things. And you know, things happen, and this job's like any other job.
Right.
There's a bad apple wherever you go, and we do our due diligence to police ourselves.
Right.
I'll tell you, I've arrested 6 officers throughout my career.
Yes.
So officers don't like bad officers, right? So in that aspect, the training, the communication is something that was lost over the last couple decades. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do, is to communicate with people and let them see, hey, it's not like it's been portrayed out to be.
Right.
This is actually what's happening. But because there's a lack of that dialogue, that communication, if you don't know what I'm thinking or what I'm doing, you're going to think a certain way because of perception.
Right.
And we're our own worst enemy. This entire country right now is our own worst enemy, and as far as perception is concerned. So there have been a lot of changes. There have been a lot of training issues that have progressed and made things better. So you don't see a lot of things that happen here like it does in other cities.
Right. Now, there were certain changes that I know y'all made, but y'all were making them before they were popular to be made. Could you talk about some of those changes?
True. So you know, there's a petition going on right now to change city charter and put things in place as far as policing is concerned in a city charter, which we're against, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But one of those changes and policies that were put in place is chokeholds. Chokeholds were put out since the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
I've never been able to do that.
You said SAPD was
SAPD
never allowed to do that.
That was placed in our policies in the mid 90s, early to mid 90s. As far as warrants are concerned, no knock warrants where officers could break down a door. There was a lot of policies put in place that people don't realize that we do or did. And a policy was put in place in November of 21 that we are not allowed to do no knock warrants unless it's a life or death situation.
Yeah.
Right? We're here to save people.
Right.
So those things are already put in place. In this petition, they're trying to put it in the city charter, which really makes no sense to us with a lot of things they're asking for in that. And part of the problem is they're trying to supersede the laws that we currently have in place. The Texas Penal Code, Code of Criminal Procedure, Texas Health and Safety Code, which deals with narcotics and all that. So, you know, we're working to educate the community as far as that's concerned. There's a ton of other things in there that not only affects policing in general and police officers, but this time this petition affects the community in a big way. And so we're trying to get the word out to explain that, because in the signatures that I think they had like 37,000 signatures, we don't think it was explained correctly.
I want to get into that. But before we do, like you brought up one of the things as far as the no-knock warrants. So I think sometimes when people hear a no-knock warrant, they're thinking a police officer can just bust down my door because they feel like it.
Oh, no, sir, that's not it at all.
Right.
We're bound by the laws that are put in place, state and federal laws. So if we're going in knocking down the door, there's a reason why. There's either narcotics being sold, there's a violent suspect in there that's committed felonies, murder suspect, kidnapping. You know, it's numerous on the amount of reasons why we can do that. Now, I will tell you, we don't do things like that unless we do our homework. So things have happened on across the country, that incidents have happened where people have been killed.
Right.
But those cities that executed those warrants didn't have policies in place that we've had for over decades. And I will tell you, we've got in making sure anytime there's a warrant issued for a house, there's a verification officer that goes up with the individuals that are going to make entry into that house. There's a supervisor verification to make sure that everything is checked, the address, numbers. If it's an apartment, you make sure that that apartment is labeled. We'll drive by, we'll take video and photos of it prior to running the warrant, so that the officers know, hey, this is the house, this is what it looks like. And it also helps us on getting information, like if there's toys out in the front yard, are there kids in the house, so we know what we can and can't do as far as executing those things. But quite frankly, really all of that falls by the wayside, even though that's in our policies to not only protect the citizens, but it protects the officers. But it's really a moot point because we can't run those anymore. So
I'm gonna hit that right there, what you said. But basically, when the policies that are in place now, if someone is knocking down, if a police officer is knocking down your door, the victim or the innocent people, they want the police knocking down their door by that point.
Yeah, it's usually, you could look at it as a hostage situation, or there's some sort of incident that's forcing us to do that. We just don't go down knocking doors, knocking down doors for any reason. Normally there's drugs being sold, there's weapons there, or there's some criminal element that is there that is vital to the safety of the neighbors around them. It's not just to go hitting any door you want. No, we're bound by state law, and you have to have probable cause to go into any home.
So if someone was to break that policy, what would happen to that police officer? If they just,
there's all kinds of things that can happen. You can get suspended, you can get fired, you can have criminal charges brought against you. So there's a lot of checks and balances that we have. We not only answer to a police chief, we answer to the city council, the city manager, the mayor. We answer to the governor, the Justice Department, you name it. And any one of those entities can do an investigation, and they can come back and, quite frankly, send us to prison.
Right.
And there's a lot of laws that are there that we have to know and be up to date on, that to make sure things like that don't happen, that we don't hit the wrong house. And accidents do happen, but we take every precaution possible to make sure that everyone is safe when we do that.
Right. So also you said this, which was very interesting. You said there must be policies that are in place here that are not in place in some of the other cities that has made San Antonio policed in a more excellent way, if you will. What are some of those things that you say would separate what has been done here versus other cities?
So in 2015, that's not too long ago,
right?
The Justice Department came down and did a recap of all our policies that are put in place, and we were listed as #1 in the nation in the policies, because we're ahead of the time as far as training was concerned. We might be behind the times on other things, but as far as training and having the officers up to date on things that could happen, can happen, any policies or initiatives that were put in place, and I'll give a couple of examples here. No one really had a mental health unit until San Antonio. We were one of the leading ones that did. There were a couple other cities that had it. It just was run a little different, didn't call it that, but that was implemented. There's the community policing. It's happened across the country. It used to be there. We kind of changed it in a way that it got the community involved so that they could see what officers actually do on a daily basis. And it changes people's minds when they see this side of it versus what they just hear.
Right. That's good to know. That's good to know. And it clears. It makes so. I'm thinking about when you're talking about the warrants, and now they've changed things. If people came down, or if there was people that came down to look at San Antonio as a model, what other changes would they make and why? For example, you're talking about the warrant, and they've made changes to that. And if it was just for the sake, I mean, if that was only in place in case there was an emergency that you had to break, what changes, why would any changes be made to that policy?
Well, it wasn't, the reason why there were changes to it was, if you go back when George Floyd started, right? And then it was a domino effect that things happened in other states and other cities. So it just, law enforcement in general pretty much changed that, right? To where no-knock warrants weren't acceptable in certain cities. Now, I will tell you, across the board, across the country, crime has skyrocketed after all those changes were done, because that's what was asked for, and a lot of departments went with it. But crime has gotten out of hand, that a lot of departments have gone back to enforcing the laws and executing warrants for narcotics and weapons and things of that sort, because that is a detriment to the community. We keep talking about the amount of fentanyl that comes across, from the border into the United States. But if you're not executing warrants and trying to catch those drugs from drug dealers, what are we supposed to do? It's not like I'm going to go knock on the door of a drug dealer's house and he's going to give it up. It doesn't work that way.
Right. So when those cities that switched back, are they the ones that said, okay, this isn't working, we need to go back to, okay. Oh, well, that's now I know there was some other things that we were talking about and you showed me and was real interesting on, I think it's Act 4SA.
Act 4SA, yeah.
Act 4SA. And one of the things you were talking about is the policy that they've changed that I see that can have a very negative effect on businesses and homeowners and any property owners, and that's that that you can't arrest or press charges unless there's merchandise that's been stolen over $750.
Yeah. So right now, they went out and got signatures to put on the next election a proposition to change the way policing is done.
Okay.
Right? Their main agenda is to get a director of justice put in place that will have a staff, and they want council to pay for that. But they want to be able to have a say-so in policing policies, initiatives, training, tell the city manager how the budget, what he can spend on the city budget, and any amendments to the city budget, especially when it refers to contracts with the police officers. And it's not just contracts of their insurance or their pay. You're talking about equipment also when you're talking about city budget. So we don't have police cars, how are we going to get to you to help you out? Right? There's a lot of other initiatives in there, but their main agenda is that justice director. But the way that they got and approached individuals to sign this petition is they said, hey, would you consider signing this petition to legalize small amounts of marijuana use, to legalize abortion? But they didn't talk about the rest of the 13 pages that was in there.
Yeah.
It's a 13-page petition, and a lot of what they're asking for is things that don't make sense. And what I mean by that is those two things that they're asking for, that should not be in the city charter, because that's what they want. That's where they want it to go, and that's what they want voters to vote for. If you want those changes, you can go to Austin and have those legislators up there make those changes of making marijuana legal. I'll tell you, abortion, San Antonio Police Department has never arrested anybody for having an abortion. That's just...
I saw that. I saw that, but that was like crazy. It's like stopping police officers from enforcing, how was it worded, from enforcing, arresting women for abortions.
Yeah.
And that was, I said, I never known a police officer.
That's not us. We've never done that.
So it sounds real deceptive to get people to sign, even though it's saying that we're doing this to legalize marijuana. It's really not to legalize marijuana. It's just to entice people to sign the petition, is what it sounds like.
Yep. And they're not forthcoming on the rest of the information. So a lot of that information that's in there, they want to change where, let's say you commit a theft, right? You go steal something. Before I can arrest you, I got to check to see if if it's the amount, it's up
$750.
to $750. If it's less than $750, I can't arrest you. The expectation is I write you a ticket or I give you a verbal warning and you're on your way. So if I have a mom and pop grocery store, and kids will be kids, and I go do a beer run at your house, how much beer can I steal before it amounts to $750?
Right.
Right. If you have a restaurant, right, and I take 50 people eat the $37 steak.
Yeah.
Right? That adds up. But how many people are going to eat and walk away without paying for the check? Now the business owners are affected because we as police officers can't do anything because they're trying to implement this.
Yeah.
And again, they're trying to put these things in state law, federal law that we have to follow, say that they can't. But if we open the door and vote yes for this, that's one step closer to them changing those things. Another one is graffiti. If someone goes and say tags your entire house, if it's less than $2,500, we can't arrest. And the way the state has it figured out and what we have to go by, it's $100 a square foot. Mm-hmm. So if you do the math, I could tag up a whole house just about.
Yes.
And not get arrested.
Yes.
So who's the one that winds up suffering? The homeowner.
Yeah.
Because now, guess what happens? It's a domino effect. Insurance rates are going to go up.
So now we have a lot of people that's coming across the border. Not all of them criminals. Some of them really are looking for a better life, and we can go into debating about, or not necessarily debating. There is a fact that there's a way to go about that, but that's not the point. The point is that we have a lot of people coming across the borders. Not all of them with great intentions, and yet we're making it easier for people to get away with crime.
Look, right now the justice system is here in Bexar County needs fixing.
Yeah.
We've got a cite and release. Well, let me rephrase that. The district attorney has a cite and release policy, and when it first started, it was small amounts of marijuana, which is 0.25 grams.
Yeah.
Which is very little, just enough for a cigarette.
Yeah.
Right? But as time went on, they kept expanding on it, and so there's a young man on YouTube that is praising the DA because he got arrested for 4 ounces of marijuana, and when they took him to jail, the DA working the magistrate's office threw the case out and released it.
Wow.
And he's on YouTube praising, thank God for that, blank DA for letting us out with this new policy we got. Mm-hmm. There's policies that the expectation is, what is the expectation? Are we just to allow people just go and do criminal acts and not suffer the consequences for it? And what I mean by that is go to jail, serve community service hours, or do what they need to do, because all you got to do is look at the TV. We're averaging 3 to 4 shootings a day. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
That is.
And if you look at the crime stats that came out on Tuesday, and it's public record, they gave it to City Council. Our homicide rate is up 43.5%.
43.5%.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people that are getting killed for what? And again, you're hampering police officers by taking away tools of the trade. One of the things on here that they're asking for is that if me as a police officer, just say you're driving a vehicle and you ran a red light, right? Well, we're having a lot of accidents right now where people are dying. So I go stop you with the intent of writing you a citation for running a red light. But as I approach, I smell marijuana. What they're saying is that they want to put it in the city charter. If I can smell it, I can't use that against you as evidence. Mm-hmm. Now, if I find marijuana, I can't get it tested anymore, and it's written in here.
Right, I saw that.
I can't get it tested to prove that it's marijuana.
Right.
So basically the case is
thrown out.
Now, if somebody's driving under the influence of marijuana, that's like somebody driving DWI.
Right.
And I get it. We're all complacent, and we're all with the mentality nothing's ever going to happen to me. But the minute that it does, people want something done.
Right.
Well, if these things pass, we're not going to be able to do anything about it, and it's going to be a problem, because now voters are going to be mad at the police department. They're not doing their job. But if you vote for this, you voted it in. This is what you wanted. So we got to figure it out. So
I read through the policy. I'm still reading through it. It's like 13 pages. So this is real. This is a real policy that they're trying to put in place. And you said if we vote yes, what's the policy? What's the
So we're not sure how it's going to be written out yet, because the city's still in the process of verifying the 37,000 signatures that they got, because they only needed 20,000 to put the referendum on the ballot. So once they verify that, we got to see how it's going to be written. If all these 13 pages are going to be in there, citizens need to know, they need to read, hey, it's not, there's two sides to every story.
Right.
And this time around, it's not coming just after police officers and the way they do their job. The things that they're asking for, it's going to affect every single citizen in the city of San Antonio and Bexar County.
Wow. I wanted to go back. This is like, I know this is old news. I've heard you explain it before. And I just wanted it to be explained again for the audience. It was about the supposedly police officer that gave someone a feces sandwich.
Oh, God. You know, that first off, I will tell you, it never happened.
Okay.
The officer made up the story. During the investigation, it was found that the officer said that he did it while he was on duty working bike patrol, right, in uniform. But the date that he said he did it, they went back and investigated and looked at it. He wasn't even on duty. He wasn't even working.
Mm-hmm.
He was out injured. He couldn't work.
Okay.
So he subsequently, during the investigation, he was put on indefinite suspension. During that time, he went and did something else that was egregious within the department. So he got fired for that and never came back.
So when you say he did something within the department, it's something that
it was a violation of policies that we had.
It didn't affect the community.
No, not at all. And so there was no homeless person that was ever found. Mm-hmm. There was no. He said that there was officers around that saw it. There were no officers around that saw it, and he couldn't have been because he wasn't on duty on the day that he couldn't have even ridden his bike. He had a problem with his leg.
Right.
So even though the story came out and that's what he said, why he said it, I have no idea.
Yeah. That's what most people want to know.
That's not the case. But I'll tell you right now, look, we don't want him here.
Right.
If he's even thinking of doing stuff like that, those types of individuals don't belong here. And there's not an officer in this department that you will find that would say, oh yeah, he should have gotten his job back. No, and not at all. He should not have gotten his job back. And he never did. He subsequently never did. But stories out, so people run with it, but they never go back to find the facts of what actually happened. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to do. You know, before anyone's arrested, we have to find out the entire story and see, and then we send it to the judge, right, to the DA. There's checks and balances there. They see if there's actual case. If it is, and it goes to trial, things happen. Yeah. Right? Same thing here. It went through the investigation. They couldn't find anything. He wasn't fired for that. He was fired for subsequently other policies that we had in place. But he never came back to work. Mm-hmm. Now,
he never came back to work.
Never came back to work for us. Now, I got chastised because I'm allowing him to work in another department. I have no control over what happens in another department. Mm-hmm. But I know we didn't want him here. And he wasn't.
When you say another department, you mean in San Antonio?
A smaller agency. I think within the county. He was working at or tried to get on in a smaller agency. I don't know if he did or not. I really wasn't paying attention to that. But I know for a fact he wasn't with us and didn't belong here. Yeah.
So now I know people want to ask this question as, how did he get hired in the first place? And what do you do to prevent? And I know there's no perfect system, but
there isn't, and there's checks and balances in place. And look, I'll tell you, when I first came on, I started in 1991. Our policies that were put in place to get on were very stringent. They were the toughest in the state of Texas, next to DPS. Mm-hmm. Somewhere in 2010, 12, somewhere in there, the previous city manager decided to lower standards a little bit and were a little bit more flexible. Those things cause some problems. So when your expectation is top notch and perfection, but you're not allowing those individuals that exceed that, right? And actually act those things out, being perfect and doing right and doing the right thing, mm-hmm. It causes a problem, and sometimes you wind up paying for it a little further on down the road. And I think that's what happened with this one.
Okay.
and like I mentioned before, this job's like any other job. There's a bad apple where you go.
Mm-hmm.
We do our due diligence to police ourselves and get rid of those bad apples.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. So are there any other challenges that you all are facing as far as, because I know another thing y'all I heard you talk about wanting to be able to give back to the community as far as building that bridge and having relationships.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen you do some of the things to do that. But what are some of the things that y'all are doing to connect back to the community?
Well, a lot of what we've been doing since I started, this is my second year, finishing up my second year as president. I got one more year left. We've been out helping the community as much as possible in these aspects, right? During Christmas time, we helped out about 1,250 families with Christmas toys. We have a scholarship fund where we're getting ready to close out the application process here. They can apply for a scholarship. The last young lady, I think we gave out a total 17,000 last year in scholarships. In totality, over the last couple of years, it's pretty close to $35,000 that we've given out in scholarships. We do help families. There were some kids that needed help when school started, needed a haircut, needed clothes. We've been able to partner up with other organizations that do those types of things. We have our nonprofit, which is Blue Cares.
Right.
That executive director was able to raise $100,000. We turned right around and sent it out to the community and where people could apply for those grants. And we were given $5,000, to different organizations. There's one in particular that comes to mind, Miss Tia Gibson. Mm-hmm. She has Monster Moms. We gave her $5,000 and helped her out with, things that we might not think about: shampoo, toothbrush, toothpaste, those types of things. There's a lot of work that we've done out in the community on the east side, not just there. It's across this city because there are a lot of people that need help, and that's what we're trying to do, and to get them to realize, hey, we're people just like you. We're no different.
Right.
The only difference is we took an oath to do a job that nobody likes.
Right.
And so that's the tough part. But we are here to help. We're enhancing that and helping other organizations that do good work out in the community. We'll go out and help them. We've cooked for some of them.
Yeah. I've been to one of those events when y'all were cooking.
Yeah, we did like 500 hot dogs at one time and 1,000 hamburgers. We've done that, and we'll partner up where they buy the food. We'll come out and cook it, and so it's worked out. But it gives us the opportunity for us to talk to people because they don't know what it is that we do, and so we've been kind of chipping away at that wall and letting people know that hey, we're here for you in many aspects.
So is that one of the go-to? I mean, that really sounds. We did an outreach, and I didn't even think to call you all to say, hey, come cook these hot dogs or hamburgers.
And where we're able to, we'll come out and do that. And
right.
So we tried, and again, you got to plan that stuff out in advance. And so it gives us the opportunity to where people see what we do. So we've got what's called a safety corps. They used to be called explorers. But the safety corps is a bunch of high school kids that we bring on, and we teach them police work, right? Some of them have gone on to work for DEA, FBI. A lot of them apply for us, and they've wound up getting a career with us and have been there. So it gives those kids an out where they might not like sports or want to play sports, but they do this, and it keeps them off the street. Right?
Yeah.
We're also doing things where we donated some money to. There's some officers through the Police Athletic League. They have a boxing gym on the west side. And just because it's on the west side, it just didn't focus on the west side. They had kids coming all over the place. And we gave several $100s to that scholarship to help these boys, equipment, and girls, equipment, training. Some of them have gone on, Golden Gloves and whatnot. So we're doing our part to get these kids to understand, hey, there's no need to be afraid of police. We're here for you. And they see it with those officers that are actually coaching them and working out with them and whatnot.
That's awesome. Is there anything else you want the community to know about SAPD?
Yeah, well, I'd like the community to start kind of putting an ear out and just paying attention to what this petition has started. If they put it on the ballot, which more than likely they are, don't take my word for it. Read it. and you're going to see that it's going to affect this community in more ways than one, and it's not a good. And I don't know what they're going to call it, if it's Proposition A or B or whatever it is, but they need to look out for it. And we'll continue to put out some stuff as far as how it's detrimental to the community, so that they can see it for themselves. But you need to read that petition to see it's not something good that can happen here.
So one of the things, and I've actually really become more aware of this, is being aware of policies. And policies is what rules or what runs. So someone can smile in your face and be wonderful before you, but the policies that they put in place can be detrimental to your way of living and to your children. And so if I could put out any type of concern, is let's be more aware of the policies that are in place, whether the policies are bad for us as far as police policies, or on both sides, that we as people of this community of San Antonio, that we're aware of the policies, and to begin to read it, because I also noticed that in these policies, the beginning or the top portion of it, it sounds good. It sounds good, but it's not. It'll say we're addressing these issues in the top portion of it, but once you get into the meat of it, it's not addressing it, or it's not addressing it the way that you would hope.
Correct.
And because one of them I was reading about in the beginning of what you what was on that website, what came from that website, it talked about how it wanted to protect minorities and indigenous people, so on and so forth. But then when you get into the meat of it, it's not doing that at all.
No, and if you look at the crime stats came out this week,
right,
and it was given to city council, and crime skyrocketed. I mentioned earlier, I think homicides are up 43%. But if you look at, and it talks about in that petition, how police officers target poor communities and people of color, that is far from the truth. If you look at the city of San Antonio, I mean, it's now gotten to the point it's predominantly Hispanic, right? But if I could read off individuals that were arrested by race, 54%, almost 55% was Hispanic, 25% or 24.9% was white, African American was 19%, and Asian was 0.4%. So those numbers don't jive with what they're saying, and that's why I say there's two sides to every story. All we're saying is, please don't take my word for it. Read it and see for yourself. This is going to affect you, not just us.
Well, it was great having you. Is there any other thing that you want to share? Did you? No,
right now I'm good to go, and we'll put out some more information and get from there. If you like, we do have our website. You can go to sapoa.org, and there's pictures on there of what we do, what we have, and information as far as we will be putting out information once we know that these votes or signatures are verified on our website. You can go in there and read up on those and how it affects the community. So.
And so from the website too, they can get in touch with you all if they wanted to do an event and see if your schedules coordinate.
So we're trying to do as much we can for the community, right? It's not put out that we got a catering service, because we don't. But we'd love to come out and help if we can. We'll do it. And please don't get upset if we have to tell you no, because there's other people that call, and there are other things that we have. Because we do have events. We have a clay shoot that raises money for our scholarship fund. We do have a golf tournament. There's all types of things that we do. We've helped out with Meals on Wheels and go out and deliver food. So we're busy, and we're out in the community. So please let us know. Again, we'll do our best to try and accommodate, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure having you. Thanks for the information. We'll use this to grow and to help our communities. And, in the long run, or the goal is for all of it to act as a team, and to be mindful that all the policies that are put in place are supposed to serve the community, to help to serve the community. Part of serving the community is having a great police department, a healthy police department. What I mean by that is allowing them to do their job in a way that really helps the community. And then also having a city council that coincides with that helps build a team and leadership that everything could come together. And so we're going to be praying for here at Soul Source. And many of you know we do SA Prayer Net, where we send out prayer targets. And we're praying for the police department. We're praying for the city council, and that San Antonio will be what God wants it to be, and that the police department will be what God wants it to be. The government of San Antonio will be what God wants it to be. And I think we're in a good spot because you're the president of SAPOA.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I believe that you were God ordained for that place and for that position. So I appreciate you, appreciate the work that you do. Thank you for coming on Soul Source. Really appreciate it. Love you. Sure. Share this podcast. I believe it'll be very helpful to a lot of people to hear this and to know what their next should be. So God bless. See you on the next episode of Soul Source. Hey, we had some technical difficulties, so I want to summarize what Officer Danny Diaz said at the end. Now, our San Antonio Police Department is not perfect, just as nobody is perfect. However, our police department has been ahead of the game, so much so that other cities have looked to us to be their example. Now, the reason why I wanted to do this video was so that we can be informed on what our communities are facing. The success of our law enforcement will always depend upon their training and the policies that are in place to help them successfully protect our communities. And the safety of our communities depend on the ability of our police department to be able to do their job effectively. And our job, we have a job as well, is to be educated and to know the policies so that we can collectively inform our city council what policies we believe will best suit our communities. We should start by seeking out what proposals will be on the ballot and understand the totality of the purpose of those proposals. Now, don't just let anyone tell you what the proposal is, but read it, because some people with some nefarious agendas will only give you a fraction of the proposal and leave out some most significant portions of their proposal just to get your signature or to get your vote. And you got to treat your signature and your vote protected with your life. I also want to encourage you, as the founder of SA Prayer Net, to pray for our city, to pray for our mayor, to pray for our city council, and also to pray for our police department, that they would take actions and make decisions that will continually make our community better. Last thing, I want to give you this invitation, and that is for you to become a part of SA Prayer Net. Our goal is to reach 1,000 intercessors. And the reason why is because we send out prayer targets when something major hits the city, that we can begin to pray together as intercessors and prayer warriors. Now, if you want to join this prayer movement, all you have to do is text the word city to 210-796-6999, and you can become a part of this prayer movement. Please join us. We'll send you that link as soon as you hit that, send out that text, and just follow the prompts, and you'll be part of this prayer unit. We love you. God bless you. And thank you for joining us on the Soul Source podcast.